shortly. All right. Um, so going straight to it, I think we can start now. Um, Good evening, everyone, and welcome to People in Products webinar. This is a webinar series that we usually have. So again, today we have one of our webinar series, and we're going to be talking about something pretty important to a lot of product managers. Um, and luckily, this actually extends beyond product management, of course, but we are speaking in the context of product management today. And we're going to be speaking on the topic that says how to undo stress and burnout as a product manager. Um, they have the privilege to get this taught by a very known person, and at the same time, um, the company he works for or he works with in this case is actually a company that we are pretty much familiar with, and which is Nguvu Health. Um, there's something I love about this old Nguvu Health name, right? I was just reading a little bit about it today again, and I saw something that Nguvu Health means, or Nguvu rather, means strength in Swahili. I mean, you would just wonder how someone would go far, far to Swahili to get a name for a startup, but it's very interesting to be honest. Nguvu Health is an on-demand online mental health platform where you access quality therapy. Um, and one thing about Nguvu Health is that Nguvu Health has been able to preach the message of their brand to a language spoken by many in Africa and beyond. So a lot of people in Africa and even beyond Africa knows about Nguvu Health. And this has really put Nguvu Health in a position to offer services, right, into a wide range of people at global scale. All right. So I'll be speaking about I would have really loved to talk about the story of Nguvu, but I mean I will just keep that because I want to really speak about the speaker. Sometimes it's always good to know what the person that is talking or addressing an audience carries so that the audience can really value the time and privilege. In the case of Olushola Temitope Ogunbiyi, I would say, guys, meet Olushola Temitope Ogunbiyi. He's going to be our speaker today, and he's a dedicated and compassionate individual who has made it his mission to improve the mental health and well-being of individuals across board. With Olushola's experience and extensive experience in the field of psychology, um, he currently serves as the therapy operation lead at Nguvu Health, a leading organization in the field of mental health services. Before Olushola joined Nguvu Health, he has also worked and held so many positions, which part of the positions were lead clinical psychologist at Synapse, a psychology service company, right? And what he did there basically was to use his skill, right? And um, to use his skill, like the skill he gained there, to solve complex health-related issues. Through his work, he has touched the lives of numerous individuals, offering guidance, support, and effective therapeutic interventions to them. Olushola's passion for mental health stems from his unwavering belief in power of psychological well-being. He understands the mental health plays. He understands that mental health plays a crucial role in our overall quality of life and is dedicated to helping individuals overcome their challenges and achieve optimal mental wellness. With Olushola's wealth of knowledge and experience, he is committed to staying at the forefront of advancements in the field of psychology and by extension, health. He actively seeks out innovative approaches and evidence-based practices to provide the best possible care to his clients. Driven by his passion and fueled by a genuine desire to make a difference, Olushola Temitope Ogunbiyi continues to inspire and transform lives through his work in the field of mental health. His dedication and commitment serves as a guiding light for those seeking support and healing in the journey towards improved mental well-being. I don't think there is anything you want in a psychologist that you will not find in this profile and portfolio that I've just read to you. So, guys, join me to welcome Olushola to the call. And I would say, welcome, Olushola. We're happy to have you. And over to you.
So I was beginning to wonder who this person that you were describing was. When next I want to write my cover letter, I'll just reach out to you. Because even myself, I was beginning to fall in love with who you were describing. But thank you very much. Thank you for the kind words.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay. How long do I have for this? We just have.
So basically the structure, we have 1 hour. We started I would make an assumption that we started just exactly 10 minutes past 7, which is now. So you have an hour, but between that time you are going to spare some time to take question and answers, basically. So I would say you have 40 minutes. So then after 40 minutes we can take question and answers. Thank you, Alicia.
40 minutes. All right, sir. Let's see how this goes. I typically would like for it to be interactive, but time might not necessarily permit for that. So I'll have my eyes on the chat sections for comments and questions as time goes. So feel free to just drop your comments in there. Once again, good evening, everybody. Um, am I allowed to share my screen?
Absolutely, yes, you are.
Okay, let's see how this goes.
Yes, please, you can go ahead and share your screen.
Yeah. Let me if you can see my screen, please.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Okay. I'm alive. Um, can you all see my screen? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you and we can see your screen perfectly.
Oh, okay. All right. So we'll be talking about stress today, and most importantly, how to deal with it. This wellness session is facilitated by Google Health, and I'll be your facilitator for today. So let's look at what's we're going to be, kind of like getting through today. We'll be looking at what I refer to as stress 101. What is stress in itself? What are the types of stress that we have? What are the causes of stress and possibly consequences of it? We also want to look at stress in terms of its management. We'll look at individual strategies, group strategies, and strategies can be adopted by organizations as well. Then we also want to look at prevention as well. What are the wellness tips that we can, imbibe to help prevent the not necessarily the incidence of stress, because stress is like a constant fixture in our lives, but reduce negative effects of stress in our day-to-day and ultimately in whatever it is that we choose to do, our career path, our relationship, and the broader spectrum of our mental health. So stress itself is like I said, it's a universal, it's a general construct. It is not something that is alienated from us. People typically there are some things in life that are naturally known as stress. Take for instance, if you're coming home from work and somebody steals your phone, it's a stressful situation. There's no other um, what's the word? There's no other translation of what that situation could be. If somebody slaps your face, you understand, it's a stressful situation. There's no other way that you can talk about that. You go to the POS and you're trying to use your last 10K to purchase something, and then it was debited, and then it wasn't the completed transaction, and it was not reversed instantly. A stressful situation. Nobody will look at that situation and say that, oh, this is a blessing in disguise or whatever. It is a stressful situation in itself. But stress can also come from situations that is not naturally known as stressful situation, such as when good thing also happens to you. We're talking about job promotion, more money, um, career advancement, relocation, childbirth, marriage, name it. They can potentially be stressful, in terms of its um, adaptation to those particular situations, acclimatization, and increased responsibilities and things like that. So we say it is a mental feeling when job duties are beyond the person's capabilities. There also mental feelings create the sense of anxiety, tensions, and the various kind of symptoms that people typically talk about when they have stress. People verbalize their stress symptoms rather than define it. So if you tell somebody that, okay, what is stress, people will typically define stress based on the symptoms that they present for me. Stress is anything that is giving me wahala. Stress is anything that is not letting me see road. Stress is Nigeria. Stress is a 500 naira per liter. Stress is, whatever it is, Vala Blue or whatever that you think stress could be to you. People typically define stress based on that. So we can look at definition of stress based on how we experience stress, And also, it's also important to know that stress can be an imaginary construct, and it can also be a physical, real, real life scenario in front of you. When it's a real life scenario, you can borrow on the kind of examples that I've given earlier, but it could also be an imaginary construct, such as stress that comes with anxiety, stress that comes with apprehension, stress that comes with paranoia, or any kind of perception that is not enshrined in reality itself. So let's look at the things that can bring about stress, into our daily life. You understand? Stress could be an environmental stimulus when things are happening around you. When things happen around you, they are happening to you and they are happening with you. What that means is that you are impacting on the stressors in your environment, and the stressors in your environment are also impacting on you, which means that they are both kind of like tossing and tussling with each other. An example of a stressor in an environment could be noise. It could be the loud noise around where you are. Maybe your neighbor, for some reason decided to put his generator behind your window, and this, the noise is just there. You're trying to shut down, you're trying to sleep, and the noise is just there. And the moment the person just goes to go and off the generator, you can basically feel the tension levitates from the environment. It was almost as if somebody was covering you with an heavy blanket that was just weighing you down. So sometimes stress could be like that. It could be tangible in terms of how it relates in an environment. It could be from activities of people. It could be from weather. It could be from natural elements. It could also be from social interactions as well. Stress might also be a reaction to reaction by the person to an extra burden. While some other person will see that extra burden as a challenge and then be happy about it, another person will see the same thing and to become a stressor to that person. So we'll talk about what perception of stress could be, as we move on. It could also be an unknown reaction to by the body to a demand, or that can lead to pressure and stress in reaction or response conditions. There's a thing called somebody was asking me recently that, oh, is stress a mental health issue? Can stress be, as a therapist, yes, you diagnose people of stress and things like that. In medicine, you understand, there is chronic stress syndrome. Also in mental health, in psychology, there's also what we refer to as chronic stress syndrome. And that chronic stress syndrome is when the capacity for an individual to manage stress, to cope with stress, to mitigate it, to find strategies to reduce the impact of stress in one life has been greatly impaired to the point that the person is now facing quite a lot of severe symptoms. Now, mind you that in the definition of what mental health is, it is in the capacity for people to achieve, the best version of themselves, and also to be able to manage and cope with life stresses. So if you are not coping with the stress in your life, it could be an indicator of a mental health issue. That means that you're not adapting well. You're not able to, cope with how things are in your environment. However, it did not say that the presence of stress itself is an indicator of problem, because the idea is that there are so many factors in life that we are not in control of. And because we're not in control of those things, they typically make us a bit stressed out. We are not in control of the kind of traffic that will meet on the road while we're going into night. We are not in control if NEPA is going to take the lights in the next 1 hour or so. We are also not in control of, how much you're going to buy fuel at the fuel pump. You're not in control of what happens in your relationship. You're also not in control of what other people that are important to you do. You're not in control of whether the person you loan money to is going to, send it back. You're not in control of if all your loved ones are going to wake up tomorrow morning. So there's many things we are not in control of. So there could be the whole idea of not knowing and not being in control is a stress for us. You can bear me witness that we always try to be in control of things around us so that we can live in that bubble of safety where you are not going to meet expectations that will shock you. Because we don't like surprises. We don't like, maybe we don't like nasty surprises. We don't like bad surprises. Maybe we are good with new surprises, but not, bad surprises. So we typically want to control all those things. That's the reason why you read a lot so that you don't fail. That's the reason why you work 9 to 5, you understand, and still do side hustles, you understand, so that you don't go broke. That is the reason why you watch what you eat so that you don't grow fat, you understand, or whatever your body goal is, you understand. Not that there's anything wrong with people that are fat or anything. There's so many things that we do that we try to control our environment in order to reduce the chances that we'll suffer any stressful eventuality. Well, at the end of the day, we find out that there are so many things in life that we are not in control of. So we are supported to things like fate, destiny, karma, whatever it is that helps us make sense around what we are talking about. So the pathophysiology of stress as it relates to us follows this few direction here. It follows the premise that, hey, people are going to resist against stressful events. So if there's any element of stress around you, your natural inclination is to go ahead and find a way to fix that stressful situation. If the light in your room is too bright, you understand, your natural inclination is to stand up and go and either reduce the light or switch something off. If your fan is making too much noise or your AC is too cold, you understand, your natural inclination is to stand up to go and do that. If there's no money in your account, your natural inclination is to go out and find a way of bringing money, you understand, or post it on your WhatsApp status and be like, my help, you understand, help me, or something like that. Whatever it is that you want to do that will bring money into that situation. It's working on that first premise. The second premise is that some people can be more tolerant against stress while others can't, which is true. And that thing right there is talking about resilience, which is also one of the things that we need to resilience. Think of resilience like a muscle that you need to build, in your body. All right. The same way we build our biceps, our triceps, our gluteus maximus, or whatever it is that you are building up. It's the same way that you can look at resilience. Resilience is the capacity for you to cope with stress, for you to change your perception about the stressor itself. The capacity for you to look at that stress, you understand, and make the best out of it, you understand, not let it bring you down, and still be able to do your day to day regardless of the stress itself. So the third premise is that when people are faced with stress factors, general adoption syndrome begins. All right, and general adoption syndrome is the theoretical, way of looking at how we develop stress. So we look at that in 3 stages, you understand, as I highlighted there. So the first stage is called the warning stage. This is basically where you begin to perceive you are alive to what the stress is in your environment. So the strength of the stress itself is based on the strength of the factor that is bringing out the stress. Some stress are little, minor. You understand? You can ignore them. Some other stress, you understand, are coming from factors that are very, very powerful. For a nursing mother that just gave birth to a child, you understand, as happy as that is, you understand, that child is a huge stress factor. on both the husband and wife. They don't typically sleep during the night, so parents are up all night, you understand. For some reason, the children will do the crying. The child will cry, 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 cry. You do all that you have to do. But that child doesn't want to sleep on while lying down on the bed. So you have to stand up and start doing all those weird dances and backing the baby and doing all of that. Baby will eventually sleep around 6 a.m. when your alarm is blowing up that you need to start to go to work. You get to work, your eyes is all red and things like that. So the kind of stress that you are battling depends on the strength of the factor that is producing the stress. So the second stage of the syndrome is that the person starts to resist against the stress, in whatever little way that you can resist against the stress, either by avoiding it, either by transmitting it into something else, either by putting other structures in place to reduce the effect of the stress itself. And the third stage of it is that, with the permanent existence of the stress factor and lack of solution, people enter a stage of what we refer to as stress syndrome. Okay, that leads to both physical and psycho-emotional exhaustion from the person. That is at the stage 3 is where people typically come out and be like, wala, 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 what is me, I'm tired, you understand? And they start verbalizing it like that, then it start affecting their work, it start affecting the way they socialize, it start affecting their physical health, it start affecting their sexual health, it start affecting the way they eat, and many things. People lose weight, people gain weight, you understand, and things like that. And that is, when people like us, typically come into play. Sorry. So let's go to what types of stress are. All right. Like I said, there is what we refer to as kinds of stress. Kinds of stress could be any variation of stress that you can think about, whether it is SAPA, whether it is somebody served you breakfast, whether it is a query from work, whether it is fuel, whether it is new government, new wahala, whether it is the weather, rains or whether it is bad, but those are kinds of stress. But it's quite different from what types of stress are. So basically, when we talk about types of stress, there are 2 types of stress, which we can basically call good stress and bad stress, as put here. Now, for some reason, the good and bad, they are intertwined. So the bad is actually supposed to be on the other side, where the lady is going through all shades of crazy, and the good one is actually the lady under the cloud and sun, where everything is calm. So apologies for that. So what does good stress mean and what does bad stress mean? So I'll basically try to explain it. A bad stress is what we refer to as distress, or distress, depending on how you want to pronounce it, or if you went to a proper primary school, one like people like us that went to schools that we used to wear uniform and sing, now the day is over. A bad stress, like I said, is called distress. From the word I'm in distress, understand? Damsel in distress, and things like that, DI stress, which we all know, is basically the definition of when an individual is under a stressful condition, distress. Bad stress is easy to explain. It's easy to identify, because typically that's when people start going through all shapes and form of, wahala, wahala, wahala. But stress can also be good. And when stress is good, it is called eustress. EU stress. Eustress, not distress. All right, so we want to look at those 2 different. So the question will now be, what's the difference between the good stress and what is the difference, between a good stress and a bad stress? So the first, let me see if the next slide covers this. Okay, good. The first thing that you need to understand, okay, fine, you can see the spelling of the 2 different kind of stress, bad stress being distress and good stress being distress. Bad stress, can be identified based on one thing, not one, like 2 things basically. And the first one is your perception of the stress itself. If the perception of the stress is negative, then it is bad stress, regardless of what is causing the stress, regardless of the kind of stress that it is. That is why you can sometimes be in the traffic, you understand, and everybody just complaining and everybody's in distress. And one guy is just there on his phone, you understand, listening to his Spotify and just enjoying his life, you understand, doing whatever, snapping pictures. Like, dude, are we not in the same situation together? You understand? How come you are handling it better? That reminds me of that, biblical portion when Jesus and his disciples were like, in that boat or ship or whatever it was, and everywhere was, there was a tempest going on, and there was water, waves, turbulence here and there, and everybody was going crazy and stand and preparing for the end. And one man is just there sleeping. I think it was also similar to the story of Jonah as well. I can't remember if that was exactly the way it went with Jonah as well. So your perception of the stress itself, is one of the first ways for you to identify whether, hey, is this eustress or distress? Now, if you perceive the stress as a negative thing, you understand, then it's going to be a bad stress. But you could also perceive it, as a positive thing. You understand, you can positively reframe the stress on yourself, and it will end up being a good thing. Take, for instance, two people did the same job. Two people got the same query on the job that they did. But one person decided to cry, break down, you understand, and be like, oh, I'm not good enough, I knew I was a failure, I knew this job was, oh God, every bad thing that I thought in my head eventually came to pass, you understand. The person, became despondent. But the other person that got the same criticism on the work, you understand, looked at it as a positive feedback. Okay, there's no such thing as a perfect work. So these feedbacks are ways for me to improve on what I'm going to do. So I'm going to learn from this experience and, think on how to make it better. I can promise myself that the next job that I'm going to do, I will incorporate all the criticism that I got on this stand and improve on, the work that I do. The person has positively reframed the same stress that broke somebody down into a positive way. So they both have the same kind of stress, but they have different type of stress. One person is experiencing it as distress, while the other person is experiencing it as eustress. Another way for you to identify if your stress that you're going through is a good stress or a bad stress, it's the kind of emotion that it elicits in you. Okay, the kind of emotion that it elicits in you. Okay, for bad stress, it can elicit things like anxiety and depression. Anxiety is characterized by compulsive worrying that debilitates you. Depression, we all know what depression is. Low mood, sadness, and all that good stuff. Feeling of being overwhelmed, you understand, it can trigger your fight or flight response, you understand, where you feel like, you're in between the devil and the deep blue sea. You perceive bad stress as things that are outside your capacity to control, your capacity to fix. So you begin to look at it from the perspective of hopelessness and helplessness, which are also symptoms of depression, funny. All right. And bad stress generally impairs your capacity to be functional. Okay. That is how you understand that this is bad stress. But good stress, on the other hand, you can tell that, okay, fine. The kind of feelings you understand that it incites you is like it increases motivation, it increases functionality, and it increases drive to be better. Okay, it helps you sharpen your goal orientation. It cultivates a mindset of development, you understand, and a positive outlook towards things. Its effects on you is short term because you are synthesizing it into something that is going to help you move faster, work smarter, and avoid that situation going forward. Okay, so there are many positive outlooks to when you perceive a stress as a good stress, as against when you perceive it as a bad stress. And remember, I said that it is not particularly in the texture or the nature of the stress itself, but rather in how you individually decide to look at the stressor. So let's look at what can typically cause stress in our day-to-day life. You understand, whether you are a marketer, whether you are a programmer, whether you are a product developer, whether you are a product manipulator, a project manager, or whatever it is, whether you're a manager, whether you are an intern or whatever. There are many things, you understand, that causes stress in our day-to-day. You understand, especially in the kind of life that we find ourselves today. So let's look at some of them. Okay. The working activities of modern institution. We're talking about your career,
I
educational institution,
Olushola, can you
government,
still hear me?
business organizations
Or
that you belong
Samuel, can you please
to,
confirm that you can still hear
trade
me? I can't hear
organizations,
Olushola again.
whatever it is, you understand,
I
that
can see
regulates
you.
our day-to-day activities, whatever it is we're going to. Those are the kind of things that typically bring stress to us.
Hello,
Oh,
can anyone hear
what
me,
is the
please?
next government policy about foreign exchange? Are
Yes,
they
yes,
going to
yes.
crack down on dollar? We're hearing that they're
Olushola, can
devaluing it
you hear me?
again. You understand? Does that mean that from here is not going to be, applicable in the next instance? Oh, UK
I
has
can hear
already
you.
banned,
Hello,
what's it called
Olushola, are you
again?
there?
What's that thing where you can take be a dependent for for student visa, you understand? So that's another JAPA option that is
Say
going
there,
to
I can
close
hear
at the
him.
end of this year. So all those things can typically, incite states of stress.
Hi, Ulishola, are you still there? You're now muted. If you can unmute, please. You can go ahead and unmute again. I think something went wrong with Google just now.
Yeah, think so too.
Hi, Ulishola, are you still there?
Yeah, I couldn't hear Olushola, so I was wondering what happened.
Yeah, I could hear him.
No, hear us. You could hear him.
Okay.
I
I
could hear
fear he
you.
might without without knowing we can't hear him.
Yeah. Toby, can you call him? Call his phone or something.
Okay.
Sorry, guys,
Maybe
for this brief disruption. I think Google is active funny. We'll be back shortly. Let's try and get the guest speaker.
all right. Thank you, Bridget. So while Bridget and Samuel are trying to do that, let's have an interactive I would say break in this case. So hi guys. We've had conversations. Olushola is actually on the call, so I just don't know what is happening. But yeah, let me just continue. So anytime he's back, he'll probably just prompt me. So we've had conversations. He has said a lot of things about mental health. Is there anyone who just wants to kind of share? I would say a summary in this case of what he has said so far.
Okay.
It doesn't really matter. Anything you remember.
Can you hear me?
Olushola, yeah, welcome back.
Oh, so
Um,
sorry, what happened? Because I was still connected, but I just couldn't hear anybody anymore. So I
yeah,
saw
same.
the.
I couldn't hear you to say like same way.
Okay, apologies for that.
Problem at
How
all.
long ago did you stop hearing me?
I would say almost not up to 2 minutes, but let me just say 2 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, I'll try to backtrack a bit and make up for that time.
All right, no
Um,
problem. So you can just go ahead. Olushola, you can go ahead. Okay.
yes, doing that. So I was talking about how things that we go through in our day to day can kind of like make stress. So I'll just move on to the next one. The kind of business organization that we work also in this stress. In this day and time, most of our stress will come from our work because that's where we spend most of our time. The requirements of those work, you understand. The role that you're filling, you understand, and how you interact with others, you understand, your superiors, your managers, your line managers, those that you are responsible to, and those that are responsible for you as well. Okay. And for people that are going to business as well, you understand, we're looking at time management, we're looking at cash flow. Is there enough liquidity to keep this business running? Am I going to be able to continue to make bill and things like that? And also generally, taking care of yourself as well. Let's look at what the consequences of stress can be on us. Okay. And these are typically the negative consequences, you understand, when we are referring to things like bad stress or distress. Okay, so the consequence can be a lot. Yes, now we'll talk about somatic symptoms. Somatic symptoms are bodily symptoms, symptoms that you manifest on your body or in your body, depending. I've heard of people talk about, oh, when they are stressed, they have breakouts. Like that's like a dermatological issue. Yes, and that's they develop rashes on their body or pimples or boils or whatever. Some people develop headache, understand, migraine or things like that. Some people develop, high blood pressure. Some people stress eat, you understand. Some people lose their appetite. Some people, gain weight excessively, some people lose weight drastically, some people lose sleep, some people sleep, like they have like narcolepsy or something like that. So those are the kind of like physical symptoms that will manifest that relates to our body or relates to our health. And consequences of excess stress also means that we are predisposed to things like substance use, abuse of drugs, and things like that. Stress has a direct correlation with like increase in smoking, increase in alcohol use, the use of other narcotic drugs, to numb, to escape or do any one of those things. It also has physical and emotional effects, in us, and some of the emotional effects could be low mood, aggression or anger management issue, loss of interest in things that you typically enjoy or things that suit you typically, or loss of sexual dexterity or libido, and many things like that. So consequences for stress can also be individualized. When you look at the stress relating to your own individual life, but you can also look at the consequences of the stress from from like an organization perspective of things. This image here tries to help us understand the different dimensions of how stress can affect our entity as an individual person. So at one corner there, we're looking at our body, just like I made mention of it. So we're talking about headache, infections, muscular complaints, twitches, fatigue, skin irritations, loss of breath, and things like that. But we can also talk about how it affects our mind as well. Which when I talk about mind, we're talking about our thinking process. How much you worry, the kind of judgments that you make. It could even impair your sleep. You're having nightmares. You're having bizarre manifestations in your dreams. You are becoming more and more irrational, can't make decisions quite well. You are more prone to negative way of looking at things or thinking, hasty decisions and thereabout. But we can look at how it also affects the emotion of the individual, loss of confidence, you become more fidgety, more irritable, you are prone to depression, apathy, loss of, capacity to positively see other people in positive light, or to even see yourself in positive, light. Withdrawals, which is what alienation means, you want to isolate and don't want to be around people, you become agitated, paranoid sometimes as well. So behaviorally, it could also mean that, you are more prone to making poor choices, accidents, loss of appetite, sex drive, drinking more. So it just kind of like shows you the different dimension of how stress can impact your wellness. Consequences for the organization could be, we'll talk about staff turnover. More staffs are leaving the organization, resigning, or getting fired because they're not just meeting up. Okay. It also shapes the attitude of people at work as well. Somebody who was the person with energy so much and filled with optimism suddenly becomes lethargic. Doesn't care whether the organization thrives or not. He's no longer passionate. You're burnt out. You can we're talking about things like absenteeism. Going on the rise. And people becoming more and more sloppy and becoming more and more unproductive and generally becoming exhausted. So from this perspective, most managers will be able to detect this, that, I think my workforce is going through stress. I think stress is affecting them or the other. So let's look at management. All right. So I'll just kind of like briefly go through this. And this will be, I think, our last slide before I stop sharing my screen. So we'll look at individual strategies because we can talk about how we culture stress, how stress impacts on us, how stress affects us. But we also want to look at what are the things that we can do, the basic 1, 2, 3 things that we can do to reduce the impact of the stress, to be more proactive about the way we're looking at it. And I've kind of like tried to talk about some of those things even from the beginning. Looking at it from the individual strategic perspective, the first thing is, let's change your perception or perspective with respect to stress itself, how you perceive the stressor itself. And the first one is, you can positively reframe the stress situation. Rather than seeing it as a demotivating thing, you can see it as a motivating factor. Okay, and that is one of the first things that you can do as an individual strategy. One of the other things that you can do is engage in recreation. Engage in sports. Don't just be idle. Be passionate about something. Engage in something that would physically enhance you and things like that. Whether it is going to the gym, working out, playing squash, playing golf, going to the tennis courts, you understand, on weekends, going to, red sand, like we used to call it, where we go and play football on the weekends, something that is athletic in nature that you can do. And the reason is not just because it is good for your body, it is good for your health. Research has shown that sporting activities, incite or release certain neurotransmitters, which are kind of like chemicals in the brain, dopamine, serotonin, you understand? And these are very, very few good neurotransmitters that help mitigate negative thoughts, negative feelings, and emotions. So if your dopamine level is high, you understand, you're more likely to be happy, more likely to be, motivated. If your serotonin level is high, you're more likely to be, active, and you're more likely to be motivated to do things, you understand, and not kind of like fixate on negative aspects of life. So sport is kind of like good for you. Find what you are good at, even if it is not contact sports, even if it is, chess, even if it is, gaming, even if it's everything within moderation anyways. It helps a lot. Second one is is resting. Resting is very, very good, yes, because we underplay the value of sleep in our life. Everybody feels like, oh, you're sleeping. When your mates are out making money, they are hustling, and you want to die just because of that. Research shows that the healthy amount of sleep is an average of 6 to 7 hours uninterrupted, well-rested sleep is good for your body. This is how you recalibrate. This is how you get rejuvenated. The more you are sleep deprived, the more you are exposing yourself to stress. And then you begin to experience all those physical and mind consequences of stress that we are going through. Also look at time management strategies that you can do to help you manage time better. Working with, a calendar, working with structures around it that can help you manage your time better. Also role management, which is very, very good. Role management is similar to things like maintaining a good boundaries at what you do. Know what is expected of you part time, as against being responsible for every possible outcome. Know what you need to do, what is expected of you. So many people are too busy looking into what other people are doing and what they are doing right or they're wrong. They don't fix it on what they are supposed to be doing. It's like being a footballer on the pitch. So maybe you're a defender, and rather than focus on the man that you are marking, you understand, or the transition of play that you are supposed to be calculating, so that you can play better, you are there criticizing your defensive partner that you are not in position, you are not in this, you'll get distracted from your own primary responsibilities and objectives. So it's always important to know what is expected of you and face that primarily first. And if there's time to fix it on other things, then you can do that. But always know what is expected of you. Understand, keep your goals narrow and keep it, so that you can have a clear focus of what is expected of you. You can also leverage on support groups. Okay. One of the first support groups that you can leverage on is family and friends, which is very, very important. The support of family and friends, people that care about you, people that you love, that love you in return. People who help make the journey of life, less burdensome on you, whether it is your romantic relationship, whether it is your parents, whether it is your siblings, whether it is your, acquaintances, whether it is church, whether it is mosque, whether it is support group like an AA meeting, or whatever it is, just leverage on those support group. They are very, very good for you. We cannot live our life in isolation because we are social animals. The more we isolate ourselves, the more we are prone to stress and the more we are prone to mental health issues. So having been a part of an organization or a structure of people, larger than yourself is very, very important to our mental health and our capacity to manage stress. So let's look at strategies that you can employ during your work. All right. We'll look at things like building a solid schedule. Okay. Don't just go to work in the morning or resume work in the morning without a to-do list of what you want to do, within the boundaries of expectation that is realistic. Okay. Don't be afraid of delegating, if you're in the capacity to delegate responsibilities, to oversee, tasks as well. Like Macaroni said, don't hold the word to your chest, don't fight the word to your chest. Feel free to delegate people. Don't let your anxiety about people not doing the job well, you understand, stop you from delegating responsibilities when you should and when you can. Look at the tools of your trade, you understand, whether it is a computer that you are using for your work, whether it is a mobile phone, whether it is spanner, whether it is a car, or whatever it is, you understand, choose the tools of your work wisely. Don't go and buy a computer that will give you an issue and add to your stress. Don't go and buy phone that will become problem for you. If it is Android that is, convenient for you, that suits the kind of work that you do, buy an Android phone. If it is an iPhone that suits the kind of work that you do, buy an iPhone. If it is a Mac, you understand, buy a Mac. If it is a Windows, buy a Windows. You're into graphics and things like that. Look for research computers that best suits the kind of work that you do. Part of the problem is that sometimes organizations just buy the cheapest computer and give to their staff, and those become problematic in itself, because they are slow, they are lagging, or whatever those things. So sometimes it's always very, very important to choose the tools of your work or of your trade very, very wisely, so that it reduces the chances that you get stress from that element as well. And also find time to unplug. Don't just work continuously. And this is for people like that are in managerial positions, entrepreneurial positions, or that you are responsible for others. The risk is that you work hours on end, not knowing when work begins and when work stops. Things like break time is typically non-existent in your diary, because you're like, oh, there's so much work to do, I cannot afford to go on break, so I hit in front of my laptop, you understand, and whatever, because there's no time. Prioritize, finding downtimes. Prioritize finding times that you can unplug and detach yourself from the work, where you are not fixated and focused on the work, or rather you are focused on yourself. Prevention strategies, you understand, we look at things like relaxation, meditations, help attempts to reduce, arousal from the stress itself. These are things that you can look and work on. Reappraisal is, reevaluating what's the stress situation itself. Last week was very, very stressful for me. Let me appraise what went wrong and what I can do better going forward. You could also change the stressors as well. If it's your laptop that is stressing you, could change it if you have the capacity for that. If it's your phone, if it is your environment, if it is your car, if it is your career, if it is your relationship, if you can change your stressor, you can change. It reduces when you have the luxury or capacity to change. It's a strategy that helps prevent stress in the long run. Stress inoculation also means that you are able to identify what the stress is, you understand, and basically neutralize it. I've been able to identify that, oh, it is my co-worker that is the stressor. Can I ask for a transfer? Can I ask for a place to, or can I call HR to mitigate, or and find a way around the situation? Oh, it is the unit that I got transferred to that is a stressor for me. If you're able to identify that, oh, can I find a transfer to somewhere else? Is there something that I can do? Or maybe you're not working well with your colleagues and your team lead is, on your matter, or you guys are not just you're having communication issues and things like that. You can identify what the stress itself is, and then neutralize it by finding a way around it. And lastly, you can also look at therapy as a way to help you, kind of like mitigate that particular situation as well. What therapy basically does that is not therapy does not help you remove the stress from your life, but like I said, it helps you understand the stress better. It can help you learn about strategies to help reduce the influence of the stress in your life, and also help you identify when you're actually under stress itself. I think I'm way past 40 minutes. So I'll stop sharing my screen now, and we can go back to Q&A.
Guys, can we give a round of applause for Olushola? This was really, 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 really helpful. I mean, if you were listening, right, you would have gained a lot of things. There are practical ways to like make your mental health better. There are practical ways to like make yourself more available to be productive and to do more. And you will see a lot of these things in the way Olushola was talking, the points he made. And I would just say thank you so much, Olushola, for this awesome webinar session. And I would also say that for those of us that have questions, we can just use the hand icon and stay on the queue so we can start calling each and every one of us. I'm going to wait for just some, and yeah, and you can also use the chat box. If you cannot speak at the moment, you can use the chat box, drop your question there, and I'm going to take it very quickly. Questions, guys. All right, while I'm waiting for questions, maybe from anybody at all. So, Olushola, Um, there is a question I want to ask you. This is a bit not in context, not in full context of the webinar, but I know very well that some people don't live in abstractive word, so they probably would or will be able to like relate more if you have a practical example of how you've done something like this in time past. So my question is, could you just quickly share a recent, or not a recent, maybe an old experience of when you were really, really burnt out, or when you were stressed, maybe within or without work, and how you kind of really worked around it, maybe prior to even when you started working with Unguvo Health, or maybe after.
Okay, thank you. So first I want to know, did you all get all that I said? I wasn't getting any feedback.
Yes. So again, guys, can we use the chat box? You can just drop, oh yes, I do, yes, 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 or no, or just put reactions. And yeah, I think reactions are coming in from the reaction section too. I believe people do understand what you shared. And yeah, for those who probably were joined later, they would definitely use the recording as well. So yeah.
All right, so if I got your question correctly, you wanted a kind of like a reenactment of a situation where on the job where I had been exposed to stress and how I got to manage it.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Okay, so outside Unguvu, I'm also a private practicing clinical psychologist, which means that I get to see clients either privately or for organizations, health institutions, and things like that. So this is kind of like a sad one, I think. I remember that I lost a patient. He succumbed to depression, and then he died of suicide. And this was a patient that I've been seeing uh, for, for the better part of 3 years, and our relationship had even gone beyond, therapist-client relationship, and it was more like a brother at that point, yes, and I was, very much, emotionally invested in this person. I knew all of his families. His parents were always, in my chats, on my calls. I was very much involved in, so I was not just wearing the therapist cap, when I'm with him. I'm also wearing the cap of a life coach, and I'm also wearing the cap of, a friend to the person. So when he ultimately passed, at a point where we thought, the worst has passed, we're beginning to get a bit more comfortable. And the person passed. It was, kind of like very, very stressful. Emotionally, I began doubting quite a lot about, would I have helped this person better? Did I fail this person? Did I fail the family? So I had to go through that process where I myself had to see a therapist to kind of like, well, we'll call it debriefing, to kind of like go through it, which is kind of like very, very much recommended, because as therapists, we also get to speak with other therapists, either in supervisory capacity or, or just in counseling capacity. When the work is stressful, you've been exposed to so many, traumatic, this thing is difficult sometimes when, you're not able to separate the job from real life. You hear some things and they just speak with you, you understand, and it can affect your output or outlook of, life in general. So I had to go through therapy. I had to take some time off work as well. Part of my recovery strategy for that situation was that, I visited, his family. You understand, we had time to talk. We grieved collectively. Um, one of my anxieties was that maybe they would blame me, kind of things like that. But those kind of negative thoughts were quickly allayed. When family appreciated the support and care, and rather than focus on, the battle that we all lost, we focus on the fact that, while he was alive, he was loved, he was cared for, and everybody, played their role and their parts. But God knows best and things like that. So that was kind of like a very, very stressful situation for me. But then since then, had grown from that experience, and I dare to say that I can manage it better. There have been similar other situations in as the years go by, and my way of managing them has been a whole lot better than that first instance. You know, I hope that answers that.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, it does. Thank you so much for that wonderful answer. I also have a question here from one of the community members. So the question is, how do you help a team member that recently lost their dad and you can tell that they are struggling? How do you help them?
All right. So the help itself has already started. But by being able to identify that somebody is struggling, that is one of the first steps in helping detecting. Sometimes we can be so involved in our own life that we don't have space to notice what is happening around us. From simple things like notice that the person is wearing his or her clothes wrong. And there was somebody that once told me that, oh, the way they noticed that the guy, that something was going on, that he came to work wearing his shirt inside out, you know, and it was around 1 o'clock before one person was able to say that, hey, man, you're wearing your shirt inside out. Is everything okay? You understand? So simple things like, oh, you're looking at the rings around somebody's eyes. You understand? Are you sleeping well? How was your weekend? You understand? Somebody that used to be cheerful before, suddenly becomes less cheerful. Somebody that used to be, communicative before decides to, and you're able to detect that something is going on. So you've already started doing, part of the work by being able to detect that, hey, um, there's something going on here. So naturally, the next step would be this, and it depends on who we are speaking to. It depends on what that person's capacity to be empathic is. You want to show empathy and not sympathy. You want to make the person understand that, hey, I am here. If there's anything you think I can do for you, understand, let me know. If there's any way you think that I can help, also don't hesitate to come. And if you ever feel the need to talk to someone, um, I can listen to you. But if you as well, you also want to, speak to somebody specialized, understand, yeah, you can speak to a therapist, understand, do I help you research that? Do I help you do this and do I help you do that? And you could also relate with your other colleagues as well. You understand, to sensitize, the office to, or somebody is struggling. You understand, let's do our best to make life easier for that person. Or can we give this person time off work? You understand, is there anything that we can do to help this person work better? Or breathe better? You understand, and things like that. Can we conduct an intervention for this person? You understand, can we take this person out? And kind of like get this person to own up and go, let's just understand that, hey, we are here for you, you understand, and this is a safe environment for you, you understand, and you're not going to get any problem, even if you're not certain of what is going on in the rest of the world, you understand. This place is going to be a safe place for you. We all have your back, and you have our support. And those are the kind of things that we can do. From the management perspective, if there are, protocols in place for situations like that, leaves, mental health, some counseling, and things like that you can offer to that person as part of, the perks of working, stand or going through that particular situation, it can also be very, very helpful as well. It's always important that you listen and don't be too in a haste to give recommendations, solutions, and things. Listen. Sometimes people just need to talk. People just need to be listened to. Because what is your solution going to? Your solution is not going to bring the person that died back to life, or anything. So it's always important for you to give the person the sense of safety, the sense of, oh, my feelings are valid, and I'm not going out of my mind kind of situation. And of course, when it goes out of your hand and you feel like, oh, this is going beyond something that we can handle in house, you can always facilitate mental health care for the person as well.
Thank you again for that wonderful answer. Olushola, thank you so much. I'm sure the answer was very useful for the person that asked the question. I have one more question. And in this case, I mean, for the benefit of everyone on this call, so I would like if you can kind of stress on that question appropriately. So, we are product managers in this community, and one key thing that I know that every product manager will like come across at every point in their career is actually stakeholder management. This comes with a lot of stress because you are not even interacting with a particular with a single layer of stakeholder. You're basically interacting with multiple layers of stakeholder, from internal stakeholders to external stakeholders, and some other categories, and some even like some fractional categories within the main category of maybe internal or external. So the question is, a lot of times there will be crises to manage within these stakeholders that stresses the product manager out. There will be situations where things will be hot in the room. There will be situations where things will be too cold, and sometimes too much silence is also a disease on its own. I mean, when it comes to mood, right? So product managers get stressed out with all of these things, and I believe there there will be practical approach, right, to getting to make sure that no matter what, no matter the kind of condition you find yourself in this case, you can still manage your mental health. You can still stay sane and do your job to the optimal. So what would you advise to the product managers on the call? Thank you.
Okay, product managers. Um, all right. So one of the first things that is has been proven to be helpful is one particular strategy, and that is called normalizing. And what does normalizing mean? Okay, normalizing basically means that you look at the situation that you find yourself in, the situation that is particularly triggering or stressful, and you normalize that this is how things happen. It is normal for this to happen. It is normal for this level of stress to be appropriate for this kind of job. There are different kind of jobs that we have. There are some jobs that are high stress, some jobs are low stress. So kind of like high stress job is management jobs, healthcare jobs, law enforcement jobs, and things like that. And in that particular kind of job, stress is normalized. So for a project manager or a product manager, right, I understand where the deliverables are, very, very high, and what's the word? You are responsible to quite a lot of number of people. You understand? There are many people that want some feedback from you. You have delivery, you have reports, you have to report to quite a lot of people. You understand? And every one of them would have critical opinions of what you are doing. If you are meeting up with those things, and that is the normal way that the job itself is supposed to be. It is not a reflection of your own ability or inability. You are not a failure just because the job is being stressed. You are not responsible for the stress that is coming for the job. It is just a normal reality with that particular job. Like a medical doctor saying that I'm stressed because a patient died. Death is a normal, aspect of life. People live, people die. We give birth, people die. You are doing a job that requires, you can be successful, you can fail. There will be wins, there will be losses. Normalizing that, hey, this particular stress that we are looking at, you understand, that is kind of like that we characterize this particular, job function to be based on, is the normal way that these things are. So by normalizing it means that you don't take those criticism personally, which means that it doesn't rub you off negatively emotionally. Some people get into meetings, you understand, product development meeting and things like that, you understand. And the atmosphere is so tense, you understand. You feel like, oh, this is I was the cause of this, you understand. I wish there's something that I could have done, you understand. If only I had been smarter, if only I had been more proactive. No. Sometimes the job can be stressful, and that is normal. So the first strategy is normalizing stress when it comes to work. All right. It is called work for a reason and not play. If it was play now, you'd be saying that stress is a bizarre concept when it comes to this. There shouldn't be stress when it comes to playing. Maybe there is, maybe there's not. But then it is job, you understand. Stress comes with the territory. Good stress and bad stress. Those are one of the first ways to normalize or to help in that particular kind of situation. The second strategy is to management of expectation, which is very, very important. It has benefits for ramifications for both, on the job and off the job. Many a times I find out that when people have issues, start with anxiety, a lot of all those stress that come with issues that come with stress, with mental health ramification. Many of them come from not being able to manage your expectations. And what does that mean? It is a very, very dysfunctional way of looking at life if the only expectation that you can possibly see is a positive outcome. That is a very, very dysfunctional way of looking at things, because who told you that the thing is going to succeed? Even sometimes in life, despite our best intentions, despite our best efforts, despite us ticking all the boxes, and dotting all our I's and crossing all our T's, there are still variables, there are still factors that are outside the domain of our control that can affect, the outcome. Create room for those things in your expectations. Managing expectation is that, it could work and it might not work. When it works, you understand, you learn from it, you understand, and take it. But when it doesn't work, yes, you also learn from that situation and be better at it. That is how to manage expectation. But when you set up with the only expectation of, it's going to succeed, there are only two expectations that I want to see. Either it succeeds or it succeeds. You are not managing your expectation well. While you are not setting out to say that, I'm preparing for failure, it is always important for you to make room for it. Make an allowance for it, because it's also a part of the normal experience of life. Okay. Sometimes you pitch the best thing based on the best, informed market strategies or research that you've done and everything you stand, and it just doesn't sit well with the right kind of people you stand, and they just shut it down and things like that. Because you expected that, the only outcome from that situation is the only one that you have fixated on in front. That means that you're not managing that your expectation well with respect to that. I'll deviate a bit. I was speaking to a couple once in a couple therapy session, and they were about to get married, you understand, and everything was planned, you understand, they love each other, you understand, yada yada, but the husband was, very, very anxious, you understand, it was beginning to tell. And when we got to the roots of his action, it was like, Shola, I know a couple of my friends who got married like some 2 years ago, they are divorced now, you know. Some of them have children. Those children are, floating between, and sometimes, it's so nasty and it's so, I don't want that to happen. I'm like, why do you think it will happen to you? He said, I've seen relationships that are even stronger than the ones that I and my partner have, and they didn't work out well. So, you know, why do you, why do I think this is going to work out well? How do I not know that it's going to end up the same way it ended with Mr. A or Mr. B or couple C, and things like that. And the first thing was like, you're not wrong for thinking that way, but you're only seeing one aspect of the picture. You're only looking at the negative aspect of the picture, where you are seeing things in only black and white. So sometimes understand that you are going into this marriage, you understand, we are going to give it all we can to keep it going, to make it successful. We understand that there will be trouble along the way, you understand, we'll work around it and things like that, and we'll give it our best shot. All right. But also we understand that in some extreme situations or some things can happen, where it won't work out. Things like irreconcilable differences, debts, health issues, or whatever it is that can come up. Those are also realistic, expectations, which is the reason why, when you go and say, you are getting married, you understand, it's going to be for better and for worse. I know some churches say for better, for better, for greater, or whatever it is, you understand. But don't you think it's also realistic for you to think that sometimes things don't work out? And that is also fine. All right. So managing expectations, you understand, is very, very important, in when we look at things. That way it doesn't break us down when things don't work out well. For not that you're setting yourself up to fail, but more like you are creating a mental safety net for when things don't work out well. Also, you need to know how to set mental boundaries. Set mental boundaries. Know when a criticism is on the job and not a criticism of you personally as an individual. Okay, when that, oh, this job that I did, I put quite a lot of myself into it, but the criticism that I'm going to get from this job is not going to be about me personally as an individual. So when they say, oh, this job is a failure, they are not saying that you, Mr. Siroma Chukwemeka, is a failure. That's not what they're saying. They're saying that the job failed, which is fine, which is okay. There have been times that the job was a success, you know, and it's also fine as well. Set boundaries, right? Our job, what we do, says a lot about our social identity and how we identify ourselves, but it doesn't define us completely. So sometimes when things don't work out well on the job, you understand, it is not a reflection of you as a person. You do not also want to fall into that black hole or that quagmire of you thinking that, oh, this reflects on me badly. While you can take responsibility for how things turn out on the job, you also don't want to find yourself in that position whereby you define yourself based on your challenges on the job, or your successes on the job, or your failures on the job. So if you define yourself based on the successes that you have on the job, what happens when you don't succeed on the job? When you have those dry spell period when you don't do well, which is normal. Everybody has them, is expected. So do you now think you're a failure at that particular point in time? So these are ways for you to kind of like maintain, your sanity, and not putting undue pressure on yourself when it comes to managing your expectation. You can also leverage on your support system, mentors, family and friends, understand, places that you can go and distress, so that the stress of the job itself doesn't get to you too much. And there's this prayer, and this is not like a spiritual or religious prayer or anything. We call it the serenity prayer. Many of you might have heard about it before. And it goes like this: God. And when I say God, it's God as you choose to understand what God is. God as an atheist, or God as a theist, God as a Muslim, or God as a Christian, God as a Buddhist, or whatever God means to you is what God could be Lionel Mercy to you, understand, and that's fine. So when you say God, it's God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, which is the first stanza of that prayer. Grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, which means that, oh, in life there are things that we can change, and there are also things that we cannot change. Okay, there are things that are within our control, and there are things that are not within our control. So God grant me serenity to accept the things that I cannot change. You understand? So when I meet things that I can't change in life, you understand, grant me the serenity, the peace of mind to accept that, to normalize that, and not stress myself up based off of that too much. Okay. The courage to change the things that I can is the next stanza of that prayer. So it goes like, oh God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can. Now, the things that are within my control, understand, grant me the courage, the wisdom to be able to change them. All right. And the third phase of that prayer is that, and the wisdom to know the difference. So the whole entire prayer says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That last aspect of the prayer is very, very important, because it supports that, hey, sometimes the problem could be in your way of identifying what is within your control and what is not within your control. So the wisdom for me to be able to identify, hey, these are things that I within my control that I can work on, that I can, that I can manipulate. And these are things that are not within my control. And these are things that I have to accept it the way they are, and not fret over it too much. And those are very, very important. Those prayers are used in AA communities and addiction recovery communities, but it has benefits and ramifications for our day-to-day life. I hope I've been able to say one or two things about that question.
You've been able to do more than justice to that question. Thank you so much, Olushola. Thank you. Guys, can we just celebrate Olushola? Thank you so much for being our speaker for today. Thank you for the valuable insights so far. I can tell that everybody in this meeting today have learned a lot of things. For us product managers, it is not always, of course, it is always about product management. So any opportunity to learn things like this is always very valuable to us. So thank you for coming around. And I would say that, again, guys, you can check out in Google Earth and see how you can use their service to better your mental health, of course. And I'm very sure that you can also reach out to Lushola Ogunbi on LinkedIn. I think that's the fastest place I would think of right now. So you can reach out to him to just, anytime you want to probably ask anything. Lushola, is that fine? For people to reach out to you on LinkedIn?
Oh, it is fine, yes. And you can also reach me on the Google Health app itself. I'm also one of the therapists enlisted on the app as well.
All right. Thank you so much. And I would say that we've learned so much today, and that brings us to the end of of the webinar, because I think our time is fast spent. But of course, we have a case for that because we had a little bit of glitch during the course of the webinar. Thank you, and we say thank you so much. Guys, can you just use the reaction icon to say thank you, Lushola? And also, don't forget, we have check-in call coming up on Saturday. Please be there. Bye, guys. Bye, Olusola. Bye.
Thank you very much for having me.